Welcome everyone to the final NEC on the Run Hoops podcast of the 2018-19 season. My name is Ron Ratner. I'm here with Ryan Peters, our resident blogger and NEC basketball expert. Ryan, we are 8 weeks down, just one to go. The NEC tournament just around the corner. Let's get into it right now. First up, what were your weekend takeaways? Lots of stuff happened. Teams were clinching tournament spots, jockeying for home games, and we have the regular season race. What do you got?
It's tightening up at the top still. We thought St. Francis could coast to the program's first regular season championship since '91, but LIU Brooklyn came into Loretto and behind 35 points from Ty Flowers and Raekwon Clark combined, they pull off the upset. So it's tightened a little bit now. You have, in a league that has balance 1 through 8. Playing at home can loom large, and this final weekend is going to be huge in determining who's going to get the home games and who's not going to get them.
So here's what we do know, Ryan. We know St. Francis U controls its own destiny in its quest to earn the top seed in the NEC tournament. They could clinch as early as Thursday with a win over Wagner and a Robert Morris win over Sacred Heart. What the Red Flash have done is secure a home game in the quarterfinals, as has FDU. So there's 2 more spots to go. Home games mean everything in the high seed format that the NEC employs. Ryan, I know you've taken a look at home court advantage during the regular season. How does that shake out?
It shakes out enormously. If you look at the top 5 teams in the league right now, all from St. Francis to the top, all the way to St. Francis, Brooklyn, 8-8 in 5th place, they have a collective home record of 31-10. So you really want to get a top 4 spot. You really do want to get a home game because it's very difficult, as we found out historically, to win 3 road games in a row to get that NEC tournament championship. It looms really large. And you look at Robert Morris is 7-2 at home. Sacred Heart is 6-1 at the Pitt Center. FDU is 7-2 in the Rothman Center. You don't want to play these teams in the quarterfinals, semifinals, or even the finals if you want to have a chance to make it to the NCAA tournament.
You hit it right on the head, Ryan. The 10 NEC teams have combined for a 73% winning percentage in NEC tournament play when playing at home. So it's huge as we go down the stretch here. At this point, let's take a look at what FDU has done down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean 9-2 in their last 11. They've won their last 3 home games, winning by an average margin of 10 points per game. They're sizzling from behind the arc, shooting 54% in those wins. Of course, led by Darnell Edge. I mean, he can't miss at this point. He's 13 of 18 from long distance. Mike Holloway, that game against Sacred Heart, 35 points on 19 shots. That was an incredible performance. Probably one of the most dominating individual performances we've seen in NEC play this year. They're really playing well. They're one of the best offenses in the league under Greg Herenda.
Totally agree, Ryan. When they get it going, they are hard to stop. And the way Jaleel Jenkins has played the second half of this season, he's the straw that stirs the drink for the Knights.
Yeah, absolutely. The point guard, and we talked about Edge, he's a wonderful shooter. Holloway is just a great bull down low. And then they have a bunch of role pieces. We don't talk much about Malone Key or Williams or Caleb Bishop, and even Brandon Powell's given Greg Herenda good minutes off the bench. They have a really solid rotation of 7 guys.
Let's turn it to Robert Morris now, which turned things around last week with a pair of home wins. What got them back on track?
They're back to business on the defensive end. In the 2 games against the Brooklyn teams, LIU and St. Francis, they allowed just 0.83 points per possession in those 2 wins. And they got back to Andy Tool basketball, extracting turnovers. In the 2 wins, they had 31 turnovers. They scored 36 points off those turnovers. When they're doing that and and they have that defensive tenacity that Tool loves to teach with Matty McConnell, with Petaway, with those guys, they're one of the best in the league.
So we have SFU at the top, Robert Morris and FDU tied for second. Let's go to the next tier right below. All these teams jockeying for home games. We have Sacred Heart, we have St. Francis, Brooklyn, and we have Wagner. What's going on with those 3?
Yeah, Ron. All 3 of those teams, they occupy the middle of the standings, but they all could realistically host a home game in the first round of the NEC quarterfinals, the tournament quarterfinals. The Pioneers bounced back with a workmanlike effort against Central Connecticut, led by Sean Hohen, 18 points on 9 shots. Obviously, St. Francis is dangerous. Gwen Sanabria, Jalen Jordan. We've talked about Jordan at length here. And then Ramon Saunders is one of the best players in the league, and Bashir Mason knows how to teach defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how these teams jockey for position in the final 2 games.
And then, Ryan, we also have to look at just qualification. 2 spots still up for grabs. Obviously, Bryant and LIU Brooklyn are in the driver's seat there. They hold a 2-game lead over Central Connecticut. Mount has been eliminated. Central still has a shot. We know either LIU or Bryant is getting in because they play each other. What's your take? I look at those two teams, Bryant and LIU, as dangerous teams. You don't want to play them if you're one of the top seeds.
I mean, with LIU, who wants to play, a team that has, that backcourt, that veteran backcourt, Raekwon Clark, when Ty Flowers is connecting from behind the arc, they're as dangerous as any team in the league. And then Bryant with their energy, their guard play. Adam Grant is Mr. Big Shot in the league, right? Bash Towns, him and Grant play a great pick and roll game. Hawkins, has played in the NCAA tournament with Murray State before. These are probably two of the best 7-8 seeds we're going to see in a long time in the NEC tournament.
Absolutely, Ryan. It should make for a very exciting March. Now, Ryan, it's time for our play of the week. We go to Hackensack. Love this one. Tell us about this FDU offensive sequence.
This is teamwork personified, Ron. Up against Wagner's tough zone defense, this play actually lasted 18 seconds, saw 10 different touches from all 5 Knights, and there were only 3 dribbles total. And it was finished off by Jaleel Jenkins, we just talked about him, getting into the teeth of that zone, kicking it out to a wide open edge, and then, as we said before, Darnell Edge is just automatic from behind the arc these days.
Those are the kind of winning plays the Knights have been making, and a reason why they're contending for the NEC title. Next up, we look back at our game of the week last Thursday in Smithfield on CBS Sports Network, Bryant and Wagner.
Oh, it was a really wild finish. Bryant was seemingly in control up 5 with the ball and 18 seconds left, but then chaos ensues. Wagner gets a steal in the inbound play, and then Nigel Jackson hits his 3 out of the timeout. Just a perfect play call from Bashir Mason. And then, after Wagner forces a 5-second violation and gives them the ball back with a chance to tie it, or a chance to take the lead, this crazy sequence takes place. Chase Freeman had a good look at the basket. Elijah Davis with the up and under the lay-in, but it fell short. And then chaos ensued. Ramon Saunders, one last desperation heave, and it fell short. And you can just see the exhaustion on the Bryant players just trying to prevent Wagner from scoring and holding on for the win. That was a really fun finish. Probably not that much fun for Jared Grosso or Bashir Mason, but it was great for us to watch on the sidelines.
Great game, much needed win for the Bulldogs heading into the final week as they look to wrap up an NEC tournament playoff spot. Time for our Twitter timeout. It's that time of the year, Ryan. Senior days all over the league. Let's take a look at a few of them.
Yeah, we're paying homage this week to the young men who've played a pivotal role in their respective programs. First, you go to FDU, senior day for them, 4-year seniors, Darnell Edge, Mike Holloway, and then Robert Morris, 4-year senior, Maddie McConnell, Malik Petway, a junior college transfer. St. Francis University, they have 5 seniors actually start for Rob Krimmel, including 2 walk-ons, but you can't forget about 4-year senior Jamal King, Andre Wolford, who's been there for 4 years, started as a walk-on, and then Luigi Laporo, who's a junior college transfer. And then my favorite was Bryant. They had 2 seniors. Taylor McHugh's been there for 4 years, and then grad transfer Byron Hawkins. But then I especially like Bryant honoring their senior manager, Michael Rosenthal. And Jared Grosso on Twitter actually called him hands down the best manager I've ever been around. That's some lofty praise. And then that tweet even got retweeted by Jay Billis of all people, who called Michael a great manager. I mean, that's some wonderful hype for a guy who behind the scenes does all the dirty work for the Bryant program.
Always a bittersweet time when the seniors are about to move on, but our schools, as always, do a great job honoring their accomplishments. We're heading under the radar now, Ryan. Kind of surprising. Wouldn't have thought this at the beginning of the year.
No, I can't believe we're highlighting Colby Thomas as an under-the-radar player, the reigning NEC Rookie of the Year in the segment, but he struggled with injuries of late. He missed the team's first 13 conference games. It's such a luxury for Andy Toole to bring him back into line, but it's kind of like an NBA team getting a player at the trade deadline. And his team was already tied for second place when they got Colby Thomas back into the rotation, and he's played well in his 3 games back. He's averaging 9 points, 6 rebounds, 1 steal per game. Even though Thomas only finished with 5 points in Saturday's win against St. Francis Brooklyn, he scored all 5 of those points in the final 3:30 of the game, punctuated here by those 2 critical dunks on a tight victory on Senior Day.
Just adds a new dynamic back to the Colonials and his work on pick and rolls. It's something that can't be underestimated as Robert Morris goes for yet another NEC crown.
Yeah, you pair him with Malik Petway in that front court. That's a really dynamic duo right there.
Now we hit our star watch. This is my favorite. When an under-the-radar guy gets promoted, who is it?
Juan Cardenas. You know, he was an under-the-radar guy because of his defense early on. You know, he was altering shots, he was blocking shots. He's third in the league now with 41 blocks for the season. But, you know, during Bryant's recent winning streak, Cardenas has showed an offensive profile. He's averaging 16 points, 6 rebounds, and shot 63% from the floor in Bryant's last 2 wins. And he had some critical points and rebounds in the final 5 minutes of their narrow victory against Wagner we talked about. You know, it's really unusual to see a big man of 5. He plays the center position for Jared Grasso to make 23 pointers at an efficient clip and also block 41 shots. You don't see that every day, and it really creates a lot of mismatches on the defensive end for the Bryant's opponents.
Yeah, you have to think that Cardenas' surge as of late has been one of the reasons where Bryant has elevated their game.
I agree. You know, you pair him with Bash Towns in the front court. Both of those players are just unique talents, and you really need 2 perimeter bigs to guard both those guys. If you have a guy who's really just comfortable around the rim, Bryant can expose you a little bit.
Our NEC milestone segment is up now. We have 2 this week. Let's start with your alma mater at Sacred Heart. What's going on?
An exciting freshman player. We've talked about Cam Parker a bunch on the NEC on the Run. He just broke Jason Brickman's record of having the most assists in any season for NEC freshmen. His mark of 180 assists, Brickman's mark of 180 assists was broken by Parker on Thursday, and he currently sits at 195. If he gets 7 more assists to this point, he'll actually record the most assists of any NEC player in the last 5 years. JoJo Cooper had 201 assists. He currently leads over the last 5 years. Pretty impressive for a freshman.
You can see the shades of Jason Brickman and Phil Gaetano on him, those pass-first point guards. You don't see too many of them in today's game.
Yeah, and Parker's so much fun to watch in transition. Sacred Heart actually leads the league in effective field goal percentage. They're shooting 56% from the floor in those transition opportunities. Of course, you need guys to finish around the rim, and you need guys to make 3-point shots. But it also takes someone to set those teammates up, and Parker does a wonderful job of setting his teammates up, especially in transition.
Let's move from on the court to the sideline. We have a coaching milestone.
Greg Corenda, congratulations. Got his 200th career win as a head coach. 75 of those victories have come at Fairleigh Dickinson. He's now in his 6th season. The biggest one, of course, coming when you remember, Ron, that season 2016 where they were picked 9th in the preseason poll, and they somehow were one of the youngest rosters in the league, in the country. I don't think people remember that. You had Darian Anderson, you had Earl Potts, you had Marquise Towns were sophomores, you had Darnell Edge and Mike Holloway as freshmen, and he still got that team with so much inexperience to the NCAA tournament. It's been a really nice start, NEC career for Greg Corenda up to this point.
Moving along, we have our games to watch this week. 2 good ones involving Sacred Heart.
Yeah, let's go to the Pitt Center. Robert Morris and St. Francis U come to the Pitt Center this week, and Sacred Heart's just trying to maintain that top 4 position. They want to get multiple home games in the NEC tournament for the reasons we outlined earlier on this podcast. It's interesting because Anthony Latina has not had a lot of success against these 2 programs, especially in the last 3 years. So you're facing a defensive juggernaut in Robert Morris, and then you're facing a St. Francis University team that has as much offensive firepower as anyone in the league. I think people forget, Sacred Heart had St. Francis on the ropes in Loretto. They were up 6 with 4 minutes to go, and then Blackman hits a big 3 at the top of the key. Then Andre Wolford gets an open look, and then they get a couple mismatches with Keith Braxton on, I believe it was Ozier and Hohen, and he converts those into buckets in the post. And St. Francis, next thing you know, wins 8 in a row, and they're flying. So Sacred Heart has a chance here to make some noise. This is kind of a good precursor going into the NEC tournament. They already clinched a spot there, but if they really want to make some noise, they got to do some damage this week.
You're right, these are essentially playoff games that will be taking place in Fairfield. Let's also take a look at our TV game this week. It's the wild card, and the game that's been selected is St. Francis U at Wagner at the Spiro Center. One team, St. Francis, looking to secure the top seed. Wagner looking to get in the mix for a quarterfinal home game. Should be a good one and a great crowd at Spiro this Thursday night, 6 p.m., CBS Sports Network. And as always, all other games on this week's docket will air live on NEC Front Row. Wrapping up the season finale of NEC on the Run, thanks once again, Ryan, for coming in.
It's my pleasure, Ron. It's the most exciting time of the year. NEC playoff basketball is going to be upon us very soon.
Can't say it any better than that. We'll be back next season for more NEC Hoops on the Run.